If everyone could take their seats, please. The chair will call to order tonight's regular meeting of the CUSD 201 Board of Education, November 13, 2018. And roll call, please.
Mr. Armstrong,
Here.
Mrs. Charlton,
Here.
Mrs. Coyle,
Here.
Mr. Price,
Here.
Mr. Rudy,
Here.
Mr. Strohmeyer,
Here.
Ms. Wilson.
Here. If we could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first item on the agenda is approval of minutes. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the October 23rd, 2018 regular meeting of the Board of Education as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'm sorry?
Abstain.
And I abstain as well. The motion carried. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the closed session of the October 23, 2018 regular meeting of the Board of Education as presented.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Abstain.
And I abstain as well. And then the chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the October 30th, 2018 special meeting of the Board of Education as presented.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstain.
Okay, are there any public comments? Okay, then we will move on to the consent agenda. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. Number one, personnel recommendations, licensed staff Laura Tarnow, library and media technology specialist, Miller Elementary School. Stipend position, Peggy Barrett, girls softball coach, Westmont Junior High School. 2, policy second reading. 3, approval of November 2018 expenditure report. And 4, ratification of October 2018 regular payroll.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Wilson,
Yes.
Mr. Armstrong,
Yes.
Mrs. Coyle,
Yes.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Mr. Rudy,
Yes.
Mr. Strohmeyer,
Yes.
Mrs. Charlton.
Yes. Okay, the first item then we have for discussion is the 2018 Illinois Association of School Boards resolution. This upcoming weekend is the tri-conference that the board and superintendent and business manager would go to every year. And Gary Armstrong is our IASB rep. And so they're, Gary, I'll just let you
Sure, I'll take it, Maria. I actually
talk
asked to
about
have
this.
this put on the board agenda for tonight. So there's just the 3 resolutions that I want to talk about that they're going to be bringing them up, and whatever you guys want me to do is what I'll do, so don't worry about that. But they're talking about the 3 resolutions are centering around student safety and protection, and 2 of the 3, the board, the IASB themselves are saying, not to adopt. And what they're really talking about is allowing administrators potentially who have licensed carry concealed permits to carry a weapon inside the school, a gun inside the school. I'm sorry, I used the word weapon, a gun inside the school. And the second resolution, the one that they are saying to adopt, actually just adds the language that is, it says, similar to other proposals, this resolution calls for the association to support and advocate for local options for schools, including for armed district personnel subject to training, background checks, license, and board approval. However, this resolution calls for locally approved training above and beyond that's required for carried concealed. I was talking to a lot of police officers today that I know, actually several of them, and they all told me the amount of training it would take is incredible. That what they go through on a monthly, daily, yearly basis to stay trained to properly control their gun is a tremendous effort, an achievement that they do. So in my opinion, and whatever the board wants me to do on resolution number 2, but I would like to bring it to discussion at the meeting that I'm at on Saturday and recommend that we do not adopt, because I personally do not believe that adding more guns into the building is the best solution for student safety, even though it's a very important topic and one that we address, consistently in our district, but I just don't feel that adding more guns into the system is the proper thing to do. But I wanted to open it for discussion to the board and see what everybody else felt.
For a point of clarification, so these are, the first one was brought by a host of school districts,
Correct,
and the IASB is saying do not adopt it.
correct.
So first, why don't we take that one?
Sure.
Do we agree to not adopt that one? 'Cause that's what Gary's asking us.
That's correct.
Do we agree to not adopt that one?
Which is the one that
That's
our
the-
administrators would carry, administrators with permits would carry, basically,
All
is
three.
what the
there-
first
there-
one is.
There's
All-
technically 3, and they kind of go back and forth a little bit. The first one and the third one are similar to each other, okay? And the IASB is saying not to
Not,
adopt.
right,
Not
and
to
so
adopt.
that's, it's that double negative, so.
Correct, but
what
not, so,
we-
I mean, yes,
yeah.
I would say 1 and 3, I've got no problem, because I don't want more guns in the school.
Right, well, that's,
Right.
so what, we've got to
wanna be
make sure
clear
that
that's
our
what we're
wording is
saying.
correct. So the question is, on number 1 of the 3, what do we want to tell our delegate? Do we also want to say, we agree to not adopt? I do.
And I do,
I do.
I do.
I as well.
Agree.
Okay, Gary, you're good.
okay.
Let's skip to 3 for a minute then. 3 is similar.
Correct, and they are
They
recommending.
are
again,
also saying, do not adopt.
Do not adopt, correct.
Do we agree?
Yeah.
Yes.
I agree.
Agree.
Okay, so we'll go back to number 2. So number 2 is brought by one school district. And the IASB is recommending to adopt. They're saying, yes, adopt. Discuss.
And it's basically because of the language that they're adding about adding the training to this, so that you would need additional training. And that's what got my attention, and that's why I started talking to some of the officers that I know, career officers that I know, that, telling me that the training they go through is intense to make sure that they know how to properly use and not use their firearm. And again, I go back to, I'm personally, again, this is Gary Armstrong again, I don't want more guns closer to the students. I'm not anti-Second Amendment, that's an entirely different conversation, but I truly believe that's not the way to better protect the students in a building.
Can you, one thing, Gary, just because you and I had been talking about this, one of the reasons that this school district brought it up was because they don't have a resource
Resource
officer.
officer, correct.
So who knows why the ISB is promoting that?
Well,
But we have,
right, I can only speculate, I mean, reading what it says in here, and I can certainly understand that, the heart of DuPage County isn't exactly, the best model for the entire state, as there's a lot of rural counties out there, and the rural counties, they don't have the police force that we have, so I can understand their rationale behind it. I don't argue with that, I just, again,
okay,
I don't think adding more guns into the system is the best plan.
okay, so,
I think it needs to be noted in number 2 that one of the issues that I have with it is that it suspends the Federal Gun-Free School Zones Act, basically. And that's a very slippery slope, in my opinion, as a state to do. An individual district, I think it's a reasonable, their argument's completely reasonable. They're talking about 10 and 20 and more minutes response time to some of their buildings. And towns with 1 police officer that's supported by sheriffs that are 20 minutes away as well. So it's not without understanding, but I have a real problem when we start saying it, we're gonna go against a federal regulation for gun-free schools.
so do you want to weigh in to Gary? Because he's kind of
I'm just asking for a consensus
That's what
from
I'm
the
saying.
board.
We
That's all I'm
want to,
saying.
you want to give him your opinion?
I think we should not adopt.
Okay.
Agree? No?
Yeah, I'm fine with no.
No, this district has worked too hard to safeguard our schools, and I don't think the parents would want that either, so no.
Okay. It's very easy.
Rick, did you? Yeah, I'm a no
Thank you.
too. It's also worth noting that this specific topic about the ISB thing has been in the paper a couple of times.
Correct. There's actually,
And other school districts are doing exactly what we're doing, and
Right.
they're saying no. So we will look forward to hearing from you, Gary, after that, on this topic. So, okay, so then the next, there's a couple other topics here. You have it in your books, financing public education. Basically,
I guess what Marie's asking is, does anybody want to chime in on any of the other
yes,
topics?
do you want to chime in on any of their topics? Okay, because it's all, again, we've never, I don't remember ever doing this, because I don't think there's ever been something of this magnitude.
Correct. But that's why I wanted to bring it to everybody's
Okay,
attention, because I
so,
thought of how important
does
it
anybody
was.
have anything else with the rest? Okay,
No, all the rest, yeah.
we're all good? Okay, great. Okay, good luck, Gary. Okay, the next item then for discussion is the presentation of monthly financial statements.
Good evening. The October financial statements are included in the packet. The district received $192,000 from the state this month. $120,000 of that was for fiscal 19 evidence-based funding payments, and $49,000 was for FY 18 payments. There are still $8,900 of fiscal year 18 payments, and there's $211,000 of fiscal year 19 payments that have been vouchered but not released to the district yet. We did receive one installment of the 2017 tax levy in the amount of $472,000. So total property taxes collected to date are $22.9 million, and that's a 97.19% collection rate. Last year, we were at 97.28, and the year before, 97.1, so we're right in line with where we should be. In the ed and tort funds, revenues are comparable to the prior year averages. We received $49,000 of fiscal year 18 and $143,000 of fiscal year 19 payments. And again, $120,000 of that was for the evidence-based funding. And there are $8,900 worth of fiscal year 18 and $55,000 of fiscal year 19 payments, voucher but not paid for the education fund. In the O&M fund, revenues are below the prior year average. And again, that's basically because of the receipt of rental income. And then in the transportation fund, again, our revenues fluctuate from year to year based on the timing of state payments. So there are $156,000 of fiscal year 19 payments vouchered but not released yet. As far as expenditures go, they're in the ed fund, they're comparable to the prior year averages. And in the O&M fund, again, they vary from year to year depending upon timing of projects. The O&M fund's 28.14% spent to date, and it was 25.71% spent to date at this time last year. And then again, expenditures in our transportation fund vary from year to year and based on the timing of receipt of invoices from our providers. So we are starting to see some of our special ed invoices coming through, so that'll start ramping up a little bit. And then the district fund balance right now is $23.7 million, and of that, we have $22.6 million invested right now, and the student activity accounts are also attached for your review. Does anyone have questions?
No.
Kim, I just have a question. It dawned on me when I was reading this and I saw the transportation fund. Did you hear that one of the buses from the Snowball broke down?
I did not hear
Okay.
that.
And I know there
have
was
been
an
a
issue
few.
with so obviously all of these things can be isolated, but do we have some recourse with the bus company? that
Yeah,
if
we can
they-
definitely start to look at enforcing penalties.
Okay.
We have had a few things where we have not paid for some of our charters.
Okay,
But no one made me aware of the snowball, so
Okay.
I will reach out to Brian
Okay,
about that.
yeah.
And then reach out and have a meeting with Westway again as well.
I mean, I know there was a situation that happened with the band and stuff like that, but it dawned on me that I thought there was some conversation that we had with them about if these things happen more than once or twice and stuff
Well,
like that.
I will definitely follow
Okay,
up. there.
okay, thank you. I just saw transportation fund and it reminded me, so. Okay, anything else on that? All right, then the next item is the state of the district.
October 31st, the state of Illinois released all the school report cards for all the school districts. And so typically, at our November meeting, I present to the board and to our community some information that we take from the school report card and other information about our district to kind of update our community on everything that's happening within our district. So basically, this evening, I'll kind of do a brief financial overview, share student demographic information in our class of 2018, our most recent graduating class, and then some of our student data, and then some of our many accomplishments, and then talk a little bit about our cost-benefit review, and then some next steps for our district going forward. So first, with regards to our district finances, this data, again, comes from our school report card, and most of our revenue, and Kim, whenever she does our budget presentation, and I don't know if she'll touch on this with today's, on the levy, tentative levy, but basically, our district, we're supported by local property taxes, so close to 85% of our revenue comes from our local property owners, and we're very appreciative of that. We pick up another 3.2% from federal, and then about almost 3% from the state. And so again, we rely very heavily on our community. When you take a look at then expenditures, now, and I've said this every time I've done a state of the district, the education is 63%, but I think you can make an argument that everything we do impacts the education of our students. And so everything that we spend is for our students. When you talk about operations, that's maintaining our schools, transportation is getting our schools to and from our buildings, and our debt service. When we did our renovations for our schools to improve the safety and security, we use bonds for that. And so everything that we do, the IMRF, Social Security is for our non-certified staff. Everything we do is for the education of our students. And again, we're not, we don't produce a product, we're a service organization. So most of that then is personnel, because we educate students. Some would argue curriculum is your product, or students who graduate at the end of a school year, though that's considered your product. But the reality is we're a service organization. In terms of our student demographic, we're approximately 62% white. We're 7.5% black, and then 21.2% Hispanic. Those are our major groups. If you look at then a further breakdown, approximately 16.8% of our students have IEPs, and that is individual education plan. That could be anywhere from speech services, social work services, and then in some cases students need a little bit more intensive programming for their educational needs. We have English language learners, 7.7%. Low income for district-wide is 35%. It varies a little bit from building to building, but overall we're at 35% low income. And then we have 1.7% of our students that are categorized as homeless. For our class of 2018, typically the last few years we've been about 87 to 86% that have gone on to a 2 or 4-year college. This particular class is at 91% of the class of 2018 went on to a 4 or 2-year college. 4% entered the workforce, 2% are attending a technical school, and our graduation rate is 99.3%. And again, if Jack was here, Jack Baldwin, our high school principal, he would explain that for some of our students, again, if they're special education students, sometimes they're still entitled to services beyond high school, and so the state still considers that as part of your graduation, so that's why we're at the 99.3%. In terms of some of our testing data from this most recent year, you can see our high school in math exceeded the met or exceeded at 57.9%, and our English language arts is 55.8. That's well above the state average. And later on, we'll talk about the designations that the state's using this year. We are categorized as exemplary because we're in the top 10% of high schools in the state of Illinois. And this is the second year the state's using SAT as the assessment. All of our students are taking SAT. And I am anticipating that that percentage will increase again next year as our staff becomes more familiar with the assessment. In terms of the ACT for the class of 2018, you can see 2018 we're at 22.8. You'll notice that in 16 it was 21.7, and then we kind of had a little jump up. And that's because in 16, we were giving ACT as the state assessment. Every junior in the state took ACT. In 17, they switched to SAT. So when all students were not required to take ACT, fewer students took the exam, and so naturally that's is some of the reason why you see an increase, because we're not testing all of our students on ACT. But the one interesting factor, though, is even in 2013, we weren't testing all of our students on ACT, and you can see that we still are doing very well for the students that we are testing. And again, that's above the state average. MAP is something that we give to all of our students, and we want all of our grade levels to be in the green-blue area for us. That means they're meeting and exceeding. You'll notice 9th and 10th grade looks like it dropped off this year, but that's because in the past we would test all of our 9th and 10th graders with MAP. When we started going to SAT as the exam, we're starting to give all of our freshmen and sophomores more SAT related tests. But we still are testing a small percentage of our students' MAPs to help us focus on their learning needs, and so that's why there's a little bit of a dip there. And the same thing with our math percentile. You can see, again, we're trying to get all of our students in the green and yellow. One of the reasons, or the green and blue, one of the reasons why we went to the new math curriculum that the board approved last spring was we're trying to improve those scores K through 5. And then in terms of Park, with Park you want, again, it's the green-yellow. That's what the state looks at. That's the students who are approaching expectations, meeting, exceeding expectations. And you can see that, when you add up those two percentages, we're doing very well across all grade levels, and that's in ELA. And you can see how we transition each year. And then in the math as well, those are our percentages. And all of our schools are commendable, which means that we're meeting expectations on the Park, and we have none of our subgroups are pre-reduced, are low income, or some of our other populations. Everybody is achieving where they need to be, and we don't have significant gaps in learning. The 5 Essentials survey, that's something that currently parents are being asked to complete right now. The students will be shortly, in a couple of weeks, they'll be asked to start completing those surveys, and then also the staff of each building. And basically it's a survey that addresses, the questions reflect the leadership within the building and some of the things that are going on, and whether or not the school is organized or well organized for school improvement. You can see that the high school and junior high are well organized, Manning and Miller are organized. Part of that also is because prior they really didn't look at students younger than 6th grade. And so part of what goes into determining if you're well organized is student response. Well, at the elementary level, you weren't getting student responses, but now they're allowing some of the elementary students to respond as well. So we're hoping to see Manning and Miller pop into that well organized as a result. And again, the designations for each of our schools, if a school is in the top 10% of the state, then they're exemplary. And so our high school, their SAT scores put them in the top 10% of the state. And again, you have to have a graduation rate greater than 67%, which is not a problem for our high school. And then any of your smaller populations, they can't be in the bottom 5%. And so none of our groups were. Junior high, Manning and Miller are commendable. So again, they're doing very well. And so basically that means that we need no intervention from the state. You know, we're doing the things that we need to do. What I'd like to do is possibly in December, talk a little bit more about ESSA, which is the new legislation that we're operating under, and go into a little bit more detail. I shared a couple of documents in the board book, but going into a little bit more detail about the designations, and over time they ramp up the percentages, you know, with the thinking that they want to see growth, and I can review that with the board so that you can know going forward what that will look like for us. Some of our accomplishments, again, our high school is at a 99% graduation rate. If you remember a few years ago, the board approved a graduation service requirement for the junior high, and 100% of the students reached their service learning requirement, and many students exceed what they're required to do. That's giving back to the community. The South Early Childhood Center received the Gold Circle of Quality, which is the highest ranking that the early childhood program can receive. And then we had last year 65 AP scholars and 303 AP tests passed. And if you think about the fact that we're a high school of about 400 students, those percentages, I don't think there's any high school that can match that percentage of passed tests compared to the number of students in the building. Some other accomplishments, again, our high school for the third time is ranked in the Washington Post. It's one of the top, it's in the top 1% of all high schools in the U.S. Amy Quattrone, our assistant principal at the junior high, she was the Illinois Principal of the Year. We'll find out a little bit later. She's now up for National Assistant Principal of the Year. We'll find out a little bit later, kind of the same process Jack went through. If you remember, at this time he was a finalist for National Principal of the Year. Again, Jack is still hurting over the fact that he was one of 3 finalists and didn't get the honor. But so we're waiting to see where how it will work for Amy. But we're very proud of our administrators. And then a little bit of the cost benefit. This was something that the board had asked us to start doing going forward, and so it's I was looking at it, seeing if we can back into it a little bit, and so. For some of the things we've been doing, it's a little bit more general, but going forward with some of the investments the district has made most recently, those are the ones we'll be able to really dig into going forward as we see the improvement that we're anticipating. But some of the things that we've done over time that are best practices, we implemented full-day kindergarten, instructional coaches at our schools. We have a summer school program, and embedded technology 1-to-1, which goes almost all the way down to the kindergarten level. We have a dual language program, which now has grown to K through 5, and next year that'll transition to the junior high with 6th grade. We have been using professional learning communities the last several years, and then the junior high changed their bell schedule so that they could build in time for those students who maybe are ready for a little bit greater challenge. There's enrichment for those students. And again, those students who might need additional support, there's a time built in to provide those students additional support. As a result of those changes, again, what we're seeing is our performance on state assessments and what the state criteria is for schools. And so we're exemplary and commendable with all of our schools. With our junior high, our Junior high niche is a ranking site for schools, and they're in the top 10% of all junior highs in the Chicagoland area. And this, we did a presentation last week to realtors, and so some of this information is gleaned from those presentations that we did. And our junior high teachers are ranked the top 10% best in Illinois. Most of the students are meeting, exceeding Park, and then in the science assessment, the high school is at 80% meeting or exceeding. And then, of course, the recognition our staff administrations have received. Niche as well gives a letter grade for schools. All of our schools, Manning, Miller, junior high and high school, are all A- on that, and that's based upon student achievement, on state assessments. It's based on, again, quality of instructors. The one thing that kind of we take a little bit of a hit that we don't have a lot of control over because of our size is some of the co-curricular offerings that you have for your students. And so with a larger student body, you typically can offer a greater number of different activities. Our students are involved in many things, and I don't think we could stretch them any thinner. And then we talked a little bit about this with our high school. There's been a 1,000% increase in the number of AP exams. And if you remember a couple of years ago when Mr. Balderman came to the board and asked he wanted to do something a little bit different with the administrative team at the high school, and the board agreed to it. And then he added a little bit more assistance to, again, those students who, targeted assistance for those students who are struggling. And as a result, we went from 29 passed exams to, again, 303 with the same enrollment. And then we went from 3 AP scholars to 65 AP scholars. If you look at the Washington Post Index, out of regular public schools, so if you take out the private schools and magnet schools, charter schools, we're number 2, and the only one higher than us is Stevenson. And then the U.S. News and World Report, the College Readiness Index, we would be number 5, again, out of the regular high schools in the state of Illinois. So we're very, very proud of that. Now this is the program that going forward, we're going to be able to focus on because the board just approved it last spring. And so we know what the initial investment is. We'll be able to track if we have to do additional training with staff. And so the initial investment this year for Ready Math was $16,301. And then for the ELA, that's $166,738. And that includes the training this year for our staff. So again, going forward, we'll be able to come back to the board and say, well, we needed to do something additional, or we're still at this total. But in terms of the benefit, we definitely want to see increased student achievement. Well, we implemented in August. Here we are in November, so it's going to be difficult to show that student achievement. But what we already have evidence of is that the curriculum is more aligned than it's ever been between Manning and Miller, and from classroom to classroom. And that's because with the introduction of the Common Core, many of our teachers were kind of trying to develop their own materials and trying to figure out how to teach the Common Core to our students. And as a result, that's when you start to get some differences between classes and grade levels and buildings. But now with the adapted curriculum that's aligned to the Common Core, then that's helps us with that level of consistency. So it's much more consistent. The teachers, the anecdotal, when you talk to our teachers, they're happy with the curriculum. They were part of the process to vet what we adopted, and so they're happy with that. We now have valid, reliable assessments. Again, we're not teachers aren't having to develop some of these things on their own, but they have these things again. And the curriculum and assessments are aligned to the Common Core standards. So we're confident that we're going to start to see a greater achievement on the park as we move forward and we continue our implementation. Some of our next steps, how do we get better? We want to continue an item analysis of park and SAT so that we become experts on those two tests. identify which questions our students struggle on answering correctly most frequently, and identify which standards the questions measure, and then identify those gaps in our curriculum. And again, one of the reasons why we adapt at the elementary level, we notice gaps in our curriculum, significant gaps, and that's why we brought on those two programs. And then having the formative assessments that are aligned to the standards. Continue with our work in professional learning communities, continue to meet in grade level teams, increasing that articulation between our grade levels and between our buildings, and then continue our curriculum implementation. And then if you remember when I was here, I think it was October, or it might have been September, our second September meeting, talking about PLCs and about the utilization of Mastery Connect. We started at the high school, then we brought on the junior high, now at the elementary level. And so again, that allows our staff to really take a look at assessments, how students are performing, what standards it's addressing, and again, where those gaps are so that we can address our instruction. So that is, then the other things that we want to do is in terms of strategic plan, we want to have students reading at grade level, at all of our grade levels, and then students receiving a B or higher in the Common Core Math, which is algebra. Continue our work with passing AP courses, because part of what the state looks at is college career readiness, and one of the criteria they look at is student participation in AP and then students passing AP tests. And then we want to make sure our students have an opportunity to explore post-secondary experiences, and not just necessarily college, but other avenues for our students to explore as well. Now that's it. So any questions?
Did you have something?
Just one, I don't, and I think you mentioned you're going to bring it to us as far as what creates commendable versus exemplary and all that. So it's just a matter of we'll get that information from you. I'm just curious, how far
Right.
are we away from 4 exemplary schools instead of 1?
We've got, we just got the database for the state. So that's what I'm trying to do is look at, okay, they talk about 10%, which honestly I'm not really thrilled with, because you're limiting exemplary to the top 10%. So automatically there are going to be students or schools who never achieve that. But there's a certain percentage that the building has to achieve on the PARC or the SAT. If it's relevant, graduation rate is part of it. And then like if you have 20 students in an underrepresented group, so if you have 20 EL students, if you have 20 students who would be characterized as low income, different minority populations, those students can't be performing the lowest 5% of the state as well. And that's how and if you're in the top 10%, you're exemplary. If you're in the less than 10%, but meeting those other criteria, you're commendable. If you are less than 10%, and then you have some of your other populations are in that lower 5%, then you are like the needs improvement area of the criteria. And then right now they're looking at ELA, they're looking at math. In 1920, they add science to it. And then as you look down the road, they start to add other subject areas as well. Some of them we don't know what the assessment's going to be yet. Like when you start talking about fine arts, we're not sure how they're going to assess fine arts. But that's going to be part of that criteria as well. But I'd like to come back in December and go into a little bit more detail about what the state is looking at, what they're going to look like. Right.
Just following up on that, based on this, the list that Jack Balderman had, it seemed like a very small list. The way this is set up, this might sound stupid, are the elementary schools eligible to be in exemplary?
They're eligible. The graduation rate won't be one of their factors. But right now with the ELA, the math, if their students are achieving the top 10%, and then again, if none of their underrepresented groups are not achieving below 5%.
Okay. Did you have something else? I had two questions, and I was wondering, thank you for this, and especially the cost benefit. Two things, could we see, you talked about two specific things that the district has started. One being the new math, CC Math 1 algebra. And there seemed to be a lot of, I remember the math teachers came and talked to us, and there was a lot of discussion about that, and our district didn't want to be the first one because you have to report that on the report cards and what was going to happen with the college students and all that kind of stuff. So now it's kind of implemented. I would love to hear back from the math teachers as to how that is going. Just from some high school kids I happen to know. It seems as though the kids are enjoying it more, and I use that word enjoying fully. I would find it interesting to hear, because one of the things that they talked about, and this was back a number of years, that there used to be one whole year of algebra and one whole year of geometry, and there was always the discussion that somewhere out there in the world, there are some people that don't like one or the other.
Right.
And so you'd have kids disconnect. So I would just find it interesting to hear from the math teachers, again, how they think it's going now.
We can do.
And then the second thing is all-day kindergarten. I would love to hear how that has parlayed into like readiness for first and second and third grade. That would be, I think, just an interesting thing to hear. I've heard that they see a difference with the all-day kindergarten.
Definitely.
So, I mean, just as a presentation to the board at some point.
Sure, that would be good to invite
Those two things.
a couple teachers to
Yeah.
address that.
Yeah,
Sure.
so, anyway, that's what I have on this.
Well, I don't have any questions. I just want to say congratulations, Kevin. This is several times now that our school just keeps seeming to be improving and improving and improving, and I think it's wonderful for the community. It's good to see that there's still the push from the administration to, keep doing better, keep making better, okay? So you look at these national rankings, top 1% in the nation for Westmont. I mean, it's outstanding. It's outstanding. So thank you very much.
For a lot of good people.
Following up on that, that you alluded to the Realtor meeting last week, and I was able to attend. And I'll just say, while you're talking about all this, a huge thank you to you and all the administrators, all the principals were there, all the business manager was there, and Linda Clowder was there, and this spectacular presentation to maybe 35 realtors that were in the room, and their mouths were gaping open every time somebody said something else. And then Jack Balderman took them on a tour of the high school, and just to hear these realtors talking, like, I knew things were going on at these schools, but now that I'm here and I see, it was just eye-opening, and it was really a wonderful, wonderful presentation, wonderful reaction from these realtors. They had very knowledgeable questions about, like, what are they hearing from people. One of the realtors said she now wishes she had bought her home in 201 instead of another part of Westmont. But it was really, 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 I mean, sometimes we go through it every day and you just kind of look, but to see it from someone else's eyes that's out there talking to people moving in, it was really, really well done. So I have to say thank you, and all the principals and everybody who was there to give that presentation. So
That went really well.
really well
Provide
done.
any kind of material for the realtors, so they have
We had,
template type of stuff, or
Yeah.
how whatever they.
we gave everyone a folder that had brag sheets on
Okay.
each of the schools, information about the schools. And then, we did the presentation for them, so,
Okay.
yeah.
And they got to see, like I said, Jack took people on a tour, and some of the people had seen the school years ago and could not
Right.
believe the change. One of the realtors had said something about, yeah, you guys didn't even get your referendum passed and you still did this. So there was a lot, there was a lot of knowledge about our district, but now they saw it like, oh, this is what everyone's talking about. So that was really nice to see. And they were looking at all these papers, they were going with it, so it was great. Okay, any other comments on this? Great, thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, God.
All right. We will now move to the action items. Are you going to do a presentation now?
I'll do it, you can do these two action
Do the first two things, okay. So the first action item, approval of authorization for treasurer to pay additional November 2018 bills. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the authorization for the treasurer to pay additional November 2018 bills.
So moved.
Second?
And roll call, please.
Mr. Armstrong?
Yes.
Mrs. Coyle?
Yes.
Mr. Rudy?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Price?
Yep.
Mr. Stromeyer?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
Mrs. Charlton?
Yes. The second one, do we need to talk about it, or just,
I can mention.
Okay.
Real quick.
just mention?
Yeah. With the amendments to the TIF agreement, this is, if the board can remember, we're having conversations with the village, and it's Burlington and Cass. And they were asking for us to work with them, and we did reach an agreement. And so it seems like things are moving a little bit forward. Moving forward now, they asked if we could move forward with our approval. Well, when they sent us the agreement, they didn't include the actual attachment or Exhibit A. And so I got it this evening. So what you're approving is the agreement that we did agree to. Dean Crum reviewed it, and you have the Exhibit A as well. So it's all there.
Okay. Any questions? All right, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the First Amendment to the intergovernmental agreement regarding the Westmont Central Business District Tax Increment Financing District, TIF, as presented.
So moved.
Second?
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Coyle?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mr. Rudy?
Yes.
Mr. Stromeyer?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Armstrong?
Yes.
Mrs. Charlton?
Yes. Okay, now we will move to the information about the tax levy.
All right, good evening. I have the 2018 tax levy presentation for you. And we are going to start off and first talk about the school district levy process. And that, first of all, involves projecting our revenues and expenditures for the next year. We also estimate our EAV and new value, and we typically have meetings with York and Downers Grove Township assessors. However, they were not available this year, so we do have an estimate from York, but not Downers Grove, and the majority of the district is in Downers Grove Township, so we are definitely doing a lot of estimating this year with our levy. We also review the budget implications by fund. And then we present the levy to the board, which we're doing this evening. And then we will publish a truth in taxation notice because we will ask for more than the 105% or CPI. And then in December, we will hold a public levy hearing. And then we have to file the certificate of levy by the last Tuesday in December. So tonight, the levy recommendations by fund, and I want to make you aware, we do ask for more than we will anticipate receiving. That protects us from our unknowns in EAV, our unknowns in new value, and if you've looked around the community, we do have, we've had some new car dealerships, and we've had some tear downs happening, and I don't have any of those estimates from DuPage County right now. And so we levy more than we anticipate receiving so that we capture all the revenue that our district is entitled to. So in the education fund, we're going to ask for 18 million. Special education fund, $3.4 million. Tort, 120,000. O&M fund, 3 million. Transportation, 1.2 million. IMRF, 400,000. Social Security, 475,000. So the total in our capped funds is $26,595,000. And then our debt service fund is $1,306,094. So our total levy is $27,911,094. And then our property tax, our levy is subject to the property tax extension limitation law, or known as PTEL. And that says that we can levy 105% of the previous year's levy or the preceding year's CPI, which is 2.1% for the 2018. And so obviously it's the lower amount, the 2.1%. So our 2018 levy represents an 18.3% overall increase from last year's extension, and it's 19.37% in the capped funds, so that's without debt service. And this protects our district from unforeseen changes in EAV and new growth. And our anticipated actual increase is going to be 2.36% overall and 2.49% in the capped funds. So just for example, in the education fund where we're gonna levy 18 million, I'm expecting that we're gonna receive 15.2 million. Special ed fund, we're levying 3.4. I anticipate receiving that. In the O&M fund, 3 million, but I anticipate receiving 2.3 million, just to give you an example of what that looks like. Then I think this is very helpful for our community to see. This is the levy in the left-hand bar, the blue bars. That's what our levy is, what we ask for. And then you can see in the red, that's what we have received in the past. So if you go back to 2011, we asked for 9.53% and we received 1.93%. Now, if you go, why did she levy lower percentages in those first several years? Well, that's when our EAVs were declining. So now that our EAVs are increasing, we give ourselves a little bit more cushion. So that's why when we started to see the trend in EAV going up in 2015, that's why we've increased that amount. But again, you can see even in 2017, we asked for 17.24%. And we received 2.31%. And then estimated, again, for 2018, 8.3%, but we're anticipating a 2.365%. And then our tax rate history from 2008 to our anticipated 2018 tax rate. So again, if you start out in 2007, you can see that in 2008, we had a dip. And then in 2009, our tax rate started to increase. While 2007, prior to that, we were seeing decreases in our tax rates because EAV was increasing. And then we hit the recession. And so as we hit the recession, our EAV started to fall. When your EAV falls, your tax rate increases. So 2014, highest tax rate for the district. EAVs started to increase in 2015, so our tax rate started to decline. And so you can see that trend. Each year since 2014, our EAV has been increasing, tax rate has been decreasing. And so the blue bars show you the debt service rate, and then the red is our operating rate. So everything other than repayment for our bonds. And I anticipate that the tax rate is going to be 4.6% and 4.3494 in the operating funds and 0.2507 in the debt service fund. And then we also do a comparison of the other unit districts in DuPage County. And then there are also districts, the combination of high school and elementary districts that we use as our peer comparison. So for 2017, you can see out of the unit districts, there's only one other unit district in DuPage County that has a lower tax rate than we do, and that's Elmhurst 205. And you can see our most like competitor of Lyle is 5.0104 compared to our 4.6915. And then when you look at the high school and elementary district combinations, though all but one are below our district rate, but again, our rate is very comparable to Hinsdale 86 and Darien 61. And rates typically for high school, elementary combinations are a little bit lower than unit districts. So the next step in the process is the truth in taxation. So we will be, we'll have a notice of our proposed tax increase in the Liberty Suburban Chicago newspaper. And that will take place on Wednesday, November 28th. And then we will hold a public hearing for the levy at the Westmont Village Hall, which is here, 31 West Quincy. And that will be on December 11th, 2018 at 7 p.m. Anybody have questions? Okay. Thank you.
Okay. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the tentative 2018 tax levy as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Sorry, roll call.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mr. Rudy?
Yes.
Mr. Stromeyer?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Armstrong?
Yes.
Mrs. Coyle?
Yes.
Mrs. Charlton?
Yes. Okay, the next action item. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the resolution authorizing a supplemental tax levy to pay the principal of and the interest on outstanding limited board bonds of Community Unit School District 201, DuPage County, Illinois, as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Rudy?
Yes.
Mr. Stromeyer?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Armstrong?
Yes.
Mrs. Coyle?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mrs. Charlton?
Yes. And then the last item is the approval of the amendment to the superintendent's contract. I would like to, first of all, say that the superintendent is in a contract that started on March of 17 and goes through June of 2021. And every year, the Board of Education evaluates, okay, well, whatever. Evaluates the superintendent, and we take that process very serious. We talk about it quite a bit. And so we're happy to report that the board has completed that project. And at this point, then, now we are going to authorize the addendum to the contract for the salary increase for that. Okay? Anyone have any questions? Okay, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the amendment to the superintendent's contract to establish salary as presented.
So moved.
Second.
And roll call, please.
Mr. Stromeyer?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Armstrong?
Yes.
Mrs. Coyle?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mr. Rudy?
Yes.
Mrs. Charlton?
Yes. All right, superintendent's report.
A couple items in my report. Thursday, November 15th is the annual Thanksgiving feast at our high school. And thank you to Steve Cashman, who is our architect. For several years now, he has sponsored that event. At one time, the district was looking to cancel it because of the expenditure, and he stepped up and said that he would cover the cost of that event. And so that'll be November 15th. The first lunch is 11:30. The second lunch is at 12:30. And any board members, if your schedule allows, you're more than welcome to attend. It's a great event to see. And it's also nice, Steve Cashman will be there. And throughout lunch, students will come up and personally thank him for this. So it's nice to see our students in that light. And then this was in the board update, but the Holidays Festival starts with Thanksgiving, and the Frosty and Friends Parade is Saturday, November 25th at 5 o'clock. And if the board will be marching in the parade, so if you'd like to join that event, it's still kind of, at one time they were saying Salt Creek parking lot for the staging area. This morning I heard it's going to be Linden, like they did the homecoming parade. So as soon as I find out definitively, I'll let you know. But if you could be there between 4:15 and 4:30 for the lineup, and then it starts at 5 o'clock. And then under communications, as part of our sister city relationship with Shinshu County, on Friday night, we had actually 9 students from Shinshu County. They're shadowing students at our high school for 2 weeks. Right now, they have a teacher from their high school that is with them. Next Monday, the high school principal is coming, and she's going to be meeting with Jack Balderman and myself to talk a little bit about our district and our high school and some of the things we're doing. But it was we had an assembly on Monday morning for our students to meet the students from Taiwan. And the students from Taiwan, they performed a dance. They then had one of their students do a drum solo, and then they sang a pop song from Taiwan. And so it was really nice, and I think our students really enjoyed that. And then they shared information about, their high school in Taiwan, so it was really nice for our students. And then the culminating event is then that Sunday, the 26th. They'll be returning to Taiwan, but we host a dinner at the high school. It'll be at 6 o'clock at the high school, and again, you're invited to attend. Last year it was really nice. The host families come with their families, and then our students are there. And then some of the individuals who are involved in the Sister City program attend as well. And it was last time it was a really nice event. And they will be leaving at 8:30 to get to O'Hare in order to fly back to Taiwan. And then the last thing I have is also Thursday, November 15th, is School Board Appreciation Day. And so, as you know, you contribute many hours to your role as a board member, and you're so supportive of our students and our staff and our administrators. And so thank you for all the work that you do. And so November 15th is also to celebrate you and the work you do.
Do we get a day off?
8 days.
Yeah. Well, then the next day we go to our conference.
Double
so-
pay.
right.
2 times 0.
Okay, did you have anything else,
That is it.
Kevin? Okay, board reports?
I just have a quick thing. I think it's wonderful, all the opportunities that the school district finds to embrace the kids in different ways. And I'm just going to bring up this example. Last Sunday night, the jazz band actually was playing in a restaurant in Elmhurst. They were like the setup band or the lead-in band for a regular jazz band that was playing there. And what an awesome experience the kids have. Random strangers, random people they don't know, dancing to their music, in this setting. It was just awesome to see. And then you hear things like the Sister City program where the kids are getting, not every high school does that. Okay, and it's great to see that here in Westmont, the students are getting these experiences. So I thank everybody involved for that.
Okay, I had 2 things. One, this past weekend, we had Snowball, and I will say that I did talk to some people at the high school that they need to change the name of the program because Friday it was snowing and Snowball. So we could change it to Tropical Island, maybe that might be nice. But it was wonderful to see this program, and this year we had almost a record number of kids attend. We had like a third of the student body go, and it was just tremendous, and to see these high school students and take leadership roles with our fantastic staff that is so dedicated to this, and alums coming back. It is a huge successful program, and I think the thing, as I've watched it grow, the thing that always strikes me the most is how at the end of the weekend, they all have connections with other kids that they would not normally connect with. And you maybe see the affirmations they get, and generally they say, you know, I didn't know that much about you, and it was really cool getting to know you over the weekend. And that speaks volumes. So I commend all the people involved in that, in the snow program. And I know our Snowflake is coming up, and then Snow Flurry. So, and then the second thing, I was a couple weeks ago went to our high school our athletic conference and awards ceremony. And what struck me was at that event, they also hand out the all-academic sports conference from the IA, and we had about 35 juniors and seniors that achieved that status, and that, to me, seemed to be one of the most wonderful things to see. You've got these student athletes who are maintaining an academic rigor at the same time participating in the sports of their choice. So to see that many students, I'm gonna just guess it was about 35, that was truly amazing, truly amazing. So again, Kevin, one of the things you talked about in your State of the District was we might not offer as many as other districts, but boy, our kids are involved. And so that was great to see. That was great to see. And we had two of our students that represented Westmont in the IHSA Class 1A Boys State Cross Country Meet, and they both earned all state honors. So that Matt, okay, I'm going to screw up these names. Godardis and Matt Torres. So congrats to them for representing at state. So, any other board reports?
I just have a couple of things from SACID. So October, I served on the search committee for the new executive director, and so there was, I don't know, 4 or 5 meetings that spanned through October. And on November 7th, the board got together to formalize hiring a new executive director who will be replacing Dr. Volpe. And he has been there, gosh, I don't know, maybe around 15 years or so. And he's retiring. And so it was the thought of the cooperative to bring in somebody early, as opposed to waiting till kind of next year would be the traditional time where you start looking for such a position. But to help with the transition, because also at the end of this school year, the business officer, Sam Kanata, will also be leaving. So it was thought to bring in a new executive director there and have that individual involved in the search for the business official as well. And so Dr. Melinda McGuffin will be, or has been hired as the new executive director, and she'll be beginning next school year, but she'll also be involved in the transitional piece as well. And she comes from the Layton area Special Education Cooperative, which I believe is a little bit southwest of here. And so the search committee was very happy with her experience and her conversations about where she would like to take the cooperative. So we're very happy to have that one piece of this transition finalized. A couple other highlights from October. They talked about enrollment across the different programs at SACID, and that the enrollment is up a little bit from last year, but that they're not seeing as much kind of in and out of the programs. So typically you'll see students transition back to their member districts, because that's one of the goals of the SACID programs, is to help students where they need them and enroll them in the SACID programs. And if they reach a point of progress that they're able to come back to their member district, that's always a goal. And so they typically see some back and forth, which this year haven't seen a lot of that to this point. And then another thing that happened at the October meeting was the board voted on a special assessment for students who attend the Southeast Alternative School to help establish a maintenance fund for the cooperative for that particular building. The Southeast School in Naperville is the only building that is owned by SACID, and it never has had a maintenance fund. And so when it came time to fix the roof and pave the parking lot and do those sorts of things, there's really no funds to draw from because you'd have to kind of go around in each member district. So they decided to help fund that. There would be a special assessment of $1,000 per student who attend at that particular location. So it's kind of trying some different ways to accommodate that need. So.
Joel, have you ever been to that facility?
Mhm.
Okay, you've
Yeah.
seen it.
We had the regular board meetings were there for a number of years, and then maybe about a year and a half ago, they moved the administration out to a separate location, and they did some renovations in the facility to add additional classroom space for the students. And so it's more of a sufficient school than a combined admin school center, so.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
I just wanted to say thank you to both you and Kevin. I was able to join you guys with you at the monthly meeting with the WTA leadership this week, and it was nice to sit down, have breakfast, and share some really great ideas with Carrie and Rainey and Joanne.
Okay. Are there any public comments? All right, then, upcoming meetings and events. Miller Elementary School Barnes and Noble Family Reading Night is November 15th at 5:30 at the Barnes and Noble in Oak Brook. Miller Elementary School Family Math and Game Night is November 9th at 6 o'clock at Miller Elementary. The Thanksgiving holiday, November 21st, 22nd, and 23rd will be non-attendance days, no school. The Frosty and Friends Parade and Tree Lighting is on November 24th. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Is that the right date?
Yeah, I think I said it.
Did you say that,
I think I said it wrong.
is it, it's the Saturday?
It's the Saturday,
Saturday,
24th.
okay, so it is the 24th. At 5 o'clock, downtown Westmont on Cass Avenue. The Westmont High School Band Craft Show, December 1st, from 9 to 3 at Westmont High School. If you've never been, it is a very good place to shop. Junior High Winter Band Concert, December 4th at 7 o'clock at the high school. The next school board meeting will be December 11th at 7 o'clock here at Westmont Village Hall. And I guess before we go, since we won't see anyone till afterwards, wishing everybody happy Thanksgiving to our students and our parents and our staff and each of you. All right. The chair will entertain a motion to enter closed session for the purpose of discussing personnel issues, student discipline, and potential litigation.
So moved.
Second.
And roll call, please.
Ms. Wilson,
Yes.
Mr. Armstrong,
Yes.
Mrs. Coyle,
Yes.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Mr. Rudy,
Yes.
Mr. Stromeyer,
Yes.
Mrs. Charlton.
Yes. And we will not have a vote after closed. Thank you.